Hello everyone, this is part of a series of videos on generative AI or Gen AI. This is within a YouTube playlist, so once you finish watching this video, there are several others that will be relevant for you. This video is all about what's happening in schools, what are the expectations on schools from the Department for Education, what can we do about it, and how might we tackle some of the harms. As well as watching this one, do make sure you watch the short video on the landscape, which specifically shows the sorts of sites that we are seeing. Really important you're aware of the AI sex bots, of the nudifying apps, and so on. That's in one of the other videos you can see. But thinking about schools, what's actually expected at the minute? Hopefully you are aware that there was a DfE policy guide called Generative Artificial Intelligence in Education that came out a year or two ago. This has been updated in January 25, and it's really worth having a look. There's some really interesting comments in there about how you might use it within schools, but also lots about the harms as well. And this is within the context of throughout the edtech industry, throughout education, there's lots of interest. Schools are aware that they need to engage in this subject, but we do need to balance the benefits and the harms. In terms of what the DfE tell you to do, you can see on the screen at the minute that there are many benefits, whether it's for teacher workload, whether it's for transforming lessons, all sorts of reasons why you might want to use generative AI in the classroom. But at the same time, from this same document, several harms are mentioned. Can we believe what we are seeing? Is it high quality just because it's been generated for us? Is it accurate? All sorts of harms that we need to be aware of. In this longer text, again from the same document, you can see from the yellow highlights some of the key things that we need to think about. We always need to be thinking about safety, risk assessments, and what kind of tools are we using? Is it appropriate to use a tool with students? Some schools will just do so with staff, but either way, as soon as you have any generative AI tool being used by students, you need to consider how does it fit in within the filtering and monitoring standards? How does it fit in with general safety? And what tools and safeguards are there in place within the actual product that we are using? And of course, age restrictions comes into play as well. One document which is not aimed at schools, but at edtech providers, at anyone who's designing a tool for use in schools, but nonetheless, it would be worth you being aware of, is on the screen at the minute. There are product safety expectations for these providers. There are indeed stringent expectations on these products. So do make sure you're aware at a high level of what should be there and make sure that you're only using tools that comply with these relatively new product safety guidelines. So what about in school and our own systems that we've already got? So filtering and monitoring tools. As you can see from the other video where we show some of the harms that we've been coming across, lots of this will be thrown up from having filtering and monitoring systems. Monitoring is really powerful because it gives you screenshots. It shows you what's actually happening on some of these websites, whereas filtering is more about blocking or allowing. So with monitoring, you'll find out more, but with filtering, you can do a lot to make sure that you're not getting on some of these sites in the first place. So do have a look at whichever provider you're with. I'm from LGfL, which does filtering too for many thousands of schools. And we have categories and bundles that you can block to make sure that not every tool is available. The one thing I would say is it's very tempting to think we want to embrace new technologies and use Gen AI in our school, so we will allow a category. We would really strongly advise against that. Even if you are very sure you have some tools that are really safe, do make sure that as a general rule, you block the categories that have all of the tools together and then just allow the selected ones that you've done risk assessments for that are deemed appropriate for use in your school by your safeguarding teams and senior leaders. That's really key. So what can we actually do about it in school though? It's really key to know. I say this against the background of the harms that we've already shown in the other videos in the playlist. Step one would be find out what's happening with your pupils and students. Again, check out the videos of primary age and secondary age students talking about this, but what about in your school? Do take the time to ask them, try and be non-judgmental to find out what sort of tools are they using. They might not want to admit that some of them may have what they see as AI girlfriends or chatbots that give them advice, some even verging on the side of therapy, which will be of great concern to you. But this sort of thing does happen. We need to try and find out if we're going to support them in this way. So that's step one in terms of the curriculum. Make sure that not everything is reactive. In a proactive way, we might want to schedule lessons on Gen AI. For example, if you're using the Education for a Connected World framework, there are suggestions there for general direction. But of course, there are not many lesson resources out there currently for it. One which is really good, which has only just come out at the time I make this video in February 25, is a new video called Protect Us from WeProtect. The link to that will be in the notes to this video, but it's excellent because there are a couple of scenarios filmed with young people going through the sorts of scenarios that could be really traumatic. So definitely don't just hit play on that in the classroom. Think about how you want to use it. They might be handy for parents, they might be handy for students, or you might just want to take a screenshot of one of the chats that they are having on their device at some point if you don't want to show the whole video. But they are really useful in terms of how young people can get tricked into things. There are a few things out there along those lines. Also a great new video in collaboration with Childline about what can you get tricked by who you think you are talking to. So some of these harms have got great scenarios that you can maybe use. But in terms of the actual content of lessons, the best thing as ever is to hear from your students about what they are doing, what sort of harms are they experiencing, and trying not to put words in their mouths about what they should do or would do, but really find out for them and give them the opportunity to tell you and inform what's going on. That's really key, both for your PSHE or RSHE lessons, but also for your safeguarding team. It's really key that the two work closely, as with all other online harms. In terms of policies, really key that you update your online safety policy and also your acceptable use policies to talk about generative AI and these harms that are going on. And of course, the opportunities, especially if you as a school are using some age-appropriate tools. But do make sure your policies reflect this. Some schools have chosen to have an AI policy. We have many templates that you can use and download from our site. We've chosen not to create an AI policy on its own because it's important that this is threaded through everything that you do. But do make sure that you've got statements on this that actually reflect reality, of course, as well. And I'll leave you now with some questions that you might want to discuss as a staff. If you're watching this in Inset or a staff briefing, then do have a think about these questions. Before you do, though, if you've not already watched the other video about the harms we're seeing, such as the sexual chatbots, nudify apps, and so on, do make sure you go and watch that video and then perhaps come back to discuss these questions so that you know, how are we feeling? What are we doing? Are we equipped for this? What do we need to do? And so on. So maybe take 5 minutes to discuss these questions as a staff. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful.